Concept paper for Vardhan Kendra. Establishment and strengthening of service delivery mechanism for protection of children. Context in India. Historical background. India is a federal parliamentary democratic republic with dual polity system. It has gone through several socio-economic and political transformation era during thousands of years. In Aryan era, occupation-based caste system was developed to bring balance in socio-economic and political condition of citizen, and further transformed into family-based caste system to ensure its socio-economic sustainability, preservation, protection, and inheritance to bring stability in living conditions of fixed colony or village. But certain defects have ruined its concept, and ideologies for equality and respect for every professional caste resulted as discrimination and destruction of society. In the glorious era of Indian history, there are evidences of a few intranational territorial disputes and missions led by great leaders of respective era with goals to unite several monarchical and state level polities into one kingdom of India Bharat. Even in those wars, social status, dignity, and lives of women and children were not violated. Till 9th century, Indian political system was an ideal as its model was exported to lands that became part of modern day Myanmar, Thailand, Laos, Cambodia, Vietnam, Philippines, Malaysia, and Java. But after 10th century, brutal attacks from ethnically and religiously organized Central Asian Muslim clans, Mongols, riders, had adversely ruined its socio-economic and political system and exploited living standard and dignity of women and children of non-Hindu family badly. It also caused disturbance in locally settled system of livelihood and created unsettled migration for another many centuries. Fleeing soldiers, learned men, mystics, traders, artists, artisans, surviving women and children unsafely migrated from one region to another for protection of their life and dignity. It resulted as declining in living standard and causes poverty and unstable governance vulnerable to war. Since 16th century, it had been ruined and exploited by Mughal Empire till 18th century, causing distorted and the worst socio-economic political scenario for majority of the inhabitants. Industrial revolution of the Europe and economic competition among European countries laid the foundation of colonialism in 18th century. Trading companies from European countries like Portugal, England, Dutch Republic, France, and Denmark adversely exploited the raw materials and trade system of India. Indian manufacturing industries were ruined in this period. In the meanwhile, political influence of England was rising on regional Indian states rulers. Several adverse factors have resulted as increased unemployment, forced labor, slavery, and commercial exploitation of raw resources including agriculture. Further tax system on agriculture set by English Empire have adversely distorted the zamindari system in India. India has unwillingly participated in World War I and World War II, resulting in exploitation of its natural resources exhaustively. These are the few key factors that demolished socio-political and economic system of India. Further, India, then British India, became one of the founder members of the United Nations in 1945. We fought to win freedom after a century of struggle, and great leaders of time organized it as Republic of India. We still remember their contribution and their struggles for debate, diplomacy, and defense of the freedom and fundamental rights of the people inhabiting in that respective sovereign republic territory. Further, rules were formed and policies were implemented for the betterment of the people. Let us discuss about current scenario. At present, India has 29 states and 7 union territories. President of India is the head of the state and the Prime Minister is the head of the Indian government. World's largest, well-recognized and rigidly written constitution defines the organization, power and limitations of central and state government. Upper house, the Rajya Sabha, representing the states of Indian Federation, and lower state house, the Lok Sabha, representing the people of India as a whole, constitutes Indian legislature. Independent judiciary, the Supreme Court headed by Chief Justice is solemnly responsible to protect the constitution, to settle disputes between the central government and states, interstate disputes, and nullify any central and state laws that go against the constitution. Part 3 of the Constitution of India guarantees 6 fundamental rights to all citizens. For example, right to equality, Article 14 to 18. Freedom, Article 19 to 22. Against exploitation, Article 23-24. Freedom to religion, Article 25 to 28. Cultural and educational rights, Article 29 to 30. And right to constitutional remedies, Article 32. Article 21 of the Constitution defines components of protection of life and personal dignity, such as to live with human dignity, decent environment, including pollution-free water and air, and protection against hazardous industries, livelihood, privacy, shelter, health, free education up to 14 years of age, free legal aid against solitary confinements, speedy trial against handcuffing, against inhuman treatment, against delayed execution, travel abroad, against bondage labor, against custodial harassment, emergency medical aid, timely medical treatment in government hospitals, not to be driven out of a state, fair trial, prisoners to have necessities, access and support provided by the law. There are also other welfare provisions that need to be implemented, like women to be treated with decency and dignity. 86 Constitutional Amendment Act of 2002 added Article 21A, which ensures free and compulsory education to all children of the age of 6 to 14. In persuasion of Article 21, there are several activities being organized. The Parliament enacted the Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009. Article 23 prohibits trafficking of human beings and forced labor. Article 24 prohibits the employment of children below the age of 14 years in any factory, mine, or other hazardous activities like construction works or railway, but it does not prohibit their employment in any harmless or innocent work. There are several legislations pertaining to children in India. This includes the Guardian and Wards Act 1890, Child Marriage Restraint Act 1929, the Employment of Children Act 1938, the Factories Act 1948, the Mines Act 1952, the Merchant Shipping Act 1958, the Plantation Labor Act 1951, the Motor Transporter Worker Act 1951, the Immoral Traffic Prevention Act 1956, the Young Persons Harmful Publication Act 1956, Apprentices Act 1961, the Bidi and Cigar Workers Act 1966, and other similar acts prohibits the employment of children below certain age. Government of India has adopted the National Policy for Children on 22nd August 1974, which further amend to the National Policy for Children 2013. In addition, the Child Labor Prohibition and Regulation Act 1986 is the most important law in this direction. Other important acts are the Infant Milk Substitutes, Feeding Bottles and Infant Foods, Regulation of Production, Supply and Distribution Act 1992, the Preconception and Prenatal Diagnostic Techniques, Prohibition of Sex Selection Act 1994, and the Person with Disabilities, Equal Opportunities, Protection of Rights and Full Participation Act 1995. In 1996, the Supreme Court directed the establishment of child labor rehabilitation welfare funds, in which the offending members need to compensate the victims in the persuasion of their rights, and there are provisions that are being implemented, like employers should deposit a fine of INR 20,000 for each child employed by him. It also issues direction for the improvement of education, health and nutrition of children. There are also associated other activities are being conducted, like the Juvenile Justice, Care and Protection of Children Act was enacted in 2000. Government of India has notified the National Charter for Children on 9th February. The Charter also ensures protection of the rights of the children during the critical phases of their life. If they are suffering, if they are victimized, if they are being tortured, then there are enforcement of rights that could ensure the protection of their rights. On 9th February 2004, the Charter was implemented. India developed National Plan of Action for Children in 2005 with purpose to reduce IMR, CMR and MMR, to eliminate child marriage and disability due to the poliomyelitis, and universal equitable access and use of safe drinking water and improved access to sanitary means. The Commissions for Protection of Child Rights Act 2005 was enacted to provide the establishment of a National Commission and State Commission for Protection of Child Rights and Children's Courts for providing speedy trial of offenders against children, or of violation of child rights. In 2006, the government banned the employment of children as domestic servants or workers in business establishments like hotels, dhabas, small hotels, restaurants, shops, factories, resorts, spas, tea shops, and so on. It warned that anyone employing children below 14 years of age would be liable for persecution and penal action. Protection of Children from Sexual Offenders Act 2012 gives special protection to the children in India. Such acts are framed and being implemented. Despite all these august acts and provisions, the situation pertaining to children is far from satisfactory that directly stems from a bad and faulty implementation of them. The monitoring and enforcement of these acts, rules, and regulations leaves a lot to do, and it is here that the scope of civil society intervention manifests itself in the scenario. Problem statement. Instead of having several schemes and provisions for marginalized persons, the children trafficking and sexual exploitation of child persist because of the lethargic attitude of responsible person. It leads to slow and irregular implementation of the schemes designed for the welfare of child rights and corruption associated with accessibility of the benefits. The protectors themselves sometimes are acting as traffickers and perpetrators of exploitation. Main causes for violation of children's rights. Nowadays, children of India are facing developmental challenges in the form of violation of child rights, child illiteracy, child labor, child prostitution, child victims of HIV/AIDS, poverty, street children, pollution, etc. The main cause of all these problems are family led and created by the unplanned family size. Lack of awareness and use of family planning services are resulting in large family, malnourished and critically ill children, ill parents with low level of education, lack of employable skills and availability of local livelihood opportunities adversely affect children's accessibility to basic needs for their survival, such as food, cloth, shelter, health, education, and sanitation. Gender discrimination and society perception of patriarchy puts extra pressure on male members of family to migrate for such a job, even at the cost of their education in early age. In case of the death of husband or father or poor family not having boy child, women become most vulnerable of exploitation. They migrate unsafely and most of them are at risk of exploitation at work such as larger working hour, less payment, worse working conditions, lack of availability of basic health facilities at workplace, and irregular payments. These factors affect their health and they become unable to support their family members residing in a far situated village. At this extent of circumstances, their family residing in village faces several problems of livelihood due to the lack of money or other earning skills. Generally, the family members of their family members borrows loans from money lenders at high rate of interest and trapped in their net of exploitation. After few times, the money lenders put pressure on women either to return their loan and interest or work for them. This may include their exploitation, which also includes the minor child, boy and girl, both of the family, and increase the vulnerability of child at risk of exploitation. There are certain practices. These malpractices need to be curtailed. There should be imposition of restrictions so that right of the children in village could be protected, and the associated activities must be implemented. Awareness should be propagated, disseminated so that they can understand. Women unwillingly send their words to work. This is also an sensitive matter, like women unwillingly send their minor children to work. The exploitation may include child labor, bondage labor, sexual exploitation, trafficking of child, and child prostitution. Children of widows and marginalized community are in most vulnerable category of exploitation. Further, the children's capacity to access basic education gets adversely affected, which in long run prohibits him to access the better livelihood opportunities and he or she supposed to suffer throughout his or her lifetime. They often get trapped into the circumstances faced by their parents. An intergenerational cycle of poverty begins. One can't take care of his wife and wards. Wife can't earn, wards can't go to school. Boy and girl child could start work at early age. Girls could be married at early age, and it continues generation by generation. Almost all children don't know their rights and are not aware of having healthy response towards risky behaviors. The need is to aware and sensitize them with capacity building on knowledge, skill, attitude, practice, advocacy, and dissemination of learned behavior of the children for the children and by the children. The need is to act as facilitator to ensure protection of right of and check violations through interdepartmental coordination. This project will conduct activities including capacity building of children, definition of child, childhood concerns, changes during childhood, pre-adolescence and adolescence, potential risk and responsible behavior, child rights scheme, why to study, scope of work for children, risky works and safe works, wake up towards child labor, child trafficking and sexual exploitation of children, stakeholders and service schemes and act, role of children for prevention of child labor, child trafficking and sexual exploitation, protection of child rights as well as accessing service for children. There are also suggested activities that need to be implemented or incorporated into this area, and the intervention area profile it could be selected by the implementer according to the need and context of the respective area. Then there are associated factors for stakeholders mapping. They need to be involved into the project implementation. This program will cover government departments, education departments, social welfare departments, labor departments, and police department or institutions. State Commission for Protection of Child Rights (SCPCR), State Child Labor Commission (SCLC), Child Welfare Committees, Juvenile Justice Board, Bar Association, and PRIs organizations. बचपन बचाओ और आंदोलन, चाइल्ड लाइन, यूनिसेफ, सेव द चिल्ड्रन, बाल रक्षा भारत, बंधुआ मुक्ति मोर्चा, जिनेवा ग्लोबल प्लान इंटरनेशनल, वर्ल्ड हेल्थ पार्टनर्स, ममता, student oxygen movements, media houses, community based organizations, self help groups, schools, Anganwadi centers, and local NGOs, public entities, restaurant owners, dhaba owners, travel agents, other persons of influence in the project area who have a direct relationship with the project and with whom the project cooperates, such as block level officials, religious leaders, volunteers, women, and community youth. Then the networking activities. Child Parliament and Meena Manch will be strengthened. Village Child Welfare Committee, Adolescent Club, Block Advisory Committee for Child Rights, District Advisory Committee for Child Rights, and State Advisory Committee for Child Rights would be formed and strengthened to ensure a channel of communication for facilitating advocacy and advisory consultancy to the government for protection of child rights. Community participation. This project aims to be child-centered. Maximum attention is given to formulate child-centered activities throughout the phases of implementation, monitoring, and evolution. Like their concerns must be implemented, incorporated. We aim to ensure participation of children as receptor of the benefits of the projects. Their parents will play a significant role as a facilitator and evaluator of the activities of the project. They will be important contact point for monitoring and evolution of the project activities throughout the implementation, monitoring and evolution phase of the project. They will also be encouraged to ensure advocacy for child rights at village, block, and district level. Social auditing of the activities will be conducted at periodic basis to ensure quality implementation of the project towards attainment of the targets. Target groups. It will also cover all children of the intervention village. People of different age, gender, and social backgrounds would be covered in different activities of the project. There would be no discrimination for selection of children to participate in program events based on age, gender, caste, and economic status. And the project goal to streamline the service availability and accessibility for protection of child rights in village. Then the project activities, proposed objectives like to establish or strengthen child parliament and Meena Manch in primary schools, middle schools, and high schools, to develop model schools for child protection and child friendly environment, to conduct capacity building training on childhood, child rights, child labor schemes, act and skills for children rights protection for selected teachers and members of child parliament and Meena Manch of the selected schools, to establish Vardhan Kendra to support all inhabitants of village to benefits from government schemes for their socio-economic developments, to form a strengthen children self-help groups to support village children of the age group 14 to 18 years for their economic and social empowerment, to ensure child parliament participation for protection of child rights of vulnerable children. And the project strategy. Constitution of India protects right of the Indian citizen in India. For minor children below the age of 18 years, their parents are responsible for the protection of child rights. Further, school teachers are responsible for effective implementation of right of children to free and compulsory education, Act 2009. PRI representatives are responsible for categorizing the beneficiaries of different government schemes and facilitating them to ensure availability of the benefits of the scheme on priority basis. Government officials at block level are responsible for speedy implementation of these schemes. If the right of children get affected through lethargic attitude, red tape culture of the service provider, then there are act to check these issues. Basically, education department and social welfare departments are responsible to implement the schemes of child rights. Labor department and police department are powered by law to monitor and control violations of right and enforcement of acts related with children. Community and civil society representatives could play a vital role for protection of child rights through capacity building and facilitation to the needy towards accessibility of schemes and awareness of act. And it's an integrated activities. It ensures participation of the different section of the society so that they can understand their rights and they can adopt good practices for the protection of their life and as well as protection of the society. Civil societies could play a vital role in this regard for stakeholder advocacy and response for protection of child rights. Media plays vital role for awareness building and information sharing on these important concerns. State Commission for Protection of Child Rights is powered and responsible to do so. The need is to strengthen the channel of complaint, reporting, processing, and acting on recommendation of SCPCR. This project aims to strengthen this network. Then village level activities. We propose to use participatory method of social change. This will be a child-oriented project intervention. The project will involve children throughout the project implementation. We believe that it is better to work directly with children to empower them towards knowledge of their right skill and protect them an attitude towards accessing positive benefits from available resources. Child Information and Resource Center Vardhan Kendra will also be established in these villages. Vardhan Kendra will support villagers to receive information and facilities for accessing benefits of available government schemes. Village Youth Club would also be formed through 10 to 15 adolescents. They would be given training on child rights as well as training and career counseling for national skill development missions, and local vocational training providers. Interested youth would be supported to start and run tuition center in nearby villages. Records of migrated youth will also be maintained at Vardhan Kendra. Counseling and support for resume making, job search, and interview skills will also be available. Village Child Welfare Committee will be formed in all intervention villages through representation of 10 elected members as well as ex-ward councillors, ex-mukhya, ex-punch, retired government staffs of the village. They will be supported through monthly review meetings for resolving child development related issues in Gram Sabha. The Village Child Welfare Committee would also be supported to form and establish communication channel with block level officials. Village Child Welfare Plan will be developed and submitted to Panchayat and block level through members of VCWC. Bal Mitra, Children's Friends, Vardhan Kendra Coordinator will support them in this regard. Children's self-help groups would be formed for children 14 to 18 years. 3 child self-help groups would be formed for boys and 3 child self-help groups would be formed for girls in each of the intervention villages. One the training of 15 children, 150 children, 8 to 18 years of all village on the child rights issue would also be given at Vardhan Kendra. Then school level activities. We would form and strengthen child parliament and Meena Manch in a school to facilitate children for decision making processes. Further, we would conduct capacity building training for teachers and selected members of the child parliament and Meena Manch of the schools. Such activities will bring solution to the existing problem of children and their empowerment. Vardhan Kendra coordinator will facilitate them to protect child rights in their school. Child parliament and Meena Manch will be encouraged to facilitate a school management committee to improve water, sanitation and recreation facilities of the school to make it child friendly to ensure more child participation in learning. Then performance awards for children. Provisions for performance awards for best performing members of child parliament or Meena Manch would be given on monthly basis of INR 500. This would be rotated based on the performance of the 6 girls leaders and 6 boys leaders from child parliament, Meena Manch and child self-help group. Then village child welfare fund. Beneficiary of Vardhan Kendra of intervention village will be requested to contribute for the village child welfare fund. This will be utilized to sponsor poor children of the village or to organize activities for child welfare through approval of village child welfare committee. Such activities of participation and organizing the society includes greater stake of the development and organization capacity building of the students, so then they can adhere with the motto of unity and discipline for their participation in social developmental activities. The proposed project activities includes development and printing of modules on child right issues, Modules would be developed through professional consultants and printed for distribution. It would be distributed to the Child Parliament and Meena Manch. It would also be available at Village Child Welfare Committee, adolescent clubs and child self-help groups. It would also be given to the self-help groups and other CBOs of the intervention block. Capacity building of the project team. Project team would be selected through open interviews at headquarters. Best candidates would be selected to work in this project. Further, 5-day residential training to project team would be given to project team through expert of child rights to strengthen them for conducting activities and supporting developed system for protection of child rights. Further, 3-day and 1-day refresher training would be given for project staffs in forthcoming years. The launching or review of project. State level launching program will be organized to share program details with potential project partners and stakeholders. Report of baseline survey will also be shared in this event. At the end of the year, annual review of the project would be done to get inputs of the major stakeholders, opinion leaders at state level. Then develop model village for protection of child rights. Develop one model village in each district for protection of child rights. Establishment of Child Information Resource Center. Vardhan Kendra is being established and strengthened into the intervention village to support household to get access to the schemes available for them. It will help village to get applied for schemes they are eligible with. It will also support them through active follow-up and guidance to get benefits of available schemes. It would help them to improve their economic status. They would become capable of protecting rights of their ward. It will reduce the vulnerability of child trafficking and child labor. Form and strengthen Village Child Welfare Committee. Village Child Welfare Committee would be formed with participation of elected Panchayati Raj Institution members and ex-Panchayati Raj Institution members, including other respected persons of the village. It would help to build a monitoring panel to monitor ongoing programs in the village for child welfare. This committee would also take care of the operational standards of Vardhan Kendra, Village Child Welfare Fund and Adolescent Club. It would also play a significant role for advocacy of village child welfare program. In Gram, Sabha and Block, monthly review meetings would be conducted with Village Child Welfare Committee. Form and strengthen Village Adolescent Club. Village Adolescent Club would be formed in the intervention village, conduct capacity building training and would be given to the select 15 adolescent boys and girls from village. They would be aware training on child rights. Bal Mitra, Vardhan Kendra coordinator would conduct monthly review meetings with Adolescent Club. This would be a review meeting to review the progress of the adolescent members and their contribution for protection of child rights. Village Adolescent Club would be supported through monthly blog books, magazines, newspapers, counseling services through Vardhan Kendra coordinators, project assistant to initiate for their self-dependency. They would be supported through counseling to participate in vocational training courses and or to start coaching center for poor students of the village or nearby villages. The project aims to ensure participation of children for their developmental activities. They would be encouraged to work as peer educator to disseminate the learning and obtain information to their friends. One-day training for all children of the village on child rights. One-day orientation training to all children, boys and girls, approx 150 children would be given about service of Vardhan Kendra, Adolescent Youth Center, Child SHG and child rights issues through training resource person at Vardhan Kendra. It would help them to access available service through Vardhan Kendra and other service providers. The information and strengthening of child self-help groups. Child self-help group is conceptualized in this project to check migration and project children from economic exploitation in village. 90 children, 14 to 18 years would be grouped into the 6 CSHG of 15 members. 3 CSHG for boys and 3 CSHG for girls would be formed in each intervention village. There would be an initial support of INR 10,000 to each group through project to immediate start interloaning and other facilities. This could be utilized as loan to group members for any amount ranging to INR 50 to INR 5,000. As discussed in the CSHG meeting with consultation of Village Child Welfare Committee and Vardhan Kendra coordinator to support needy children to start their own business. The fund would be on a nominal interest of 1% per month. Profits of the interest would be shared to members' accounts as for regular SHG. Leaders of child SHG would be oriented through 3 days training on SHG management through active leaders of Jivika SHG or village at Vardhan Kendra. There would be provisions of saving and credit groups and interloaning. These would be most vulnerable children who is involved in hazardous or hard labor work in village. These group members would be supported to obtain vocational training through available resources. Then develop model school for protection of child rights, conduct capacity building training for members of school teachers and members of child parliament and Meena Manch. Child parliament and Meena Manch would be formed in primary school, middle school and high school. Teachers, child parliament and Meena Manch members would be trained on child right issues for one day for 3 times throughout the project period. It would help them to have better understanding of the child rights, and they would know the use of training module to conduct further capacity building training in their respective schools. They would be supported to conduct monthly review meetings of their respective child parliament and Meena Manch. Then performance award for best performing leader of child parliament or Meena Manch. 12 best performing child leaders, child parliament or Meena Manch would be selected and awarded with INR 500 on monthly basis. Awardees may be same children, other children, best up to their performance in a school parliament or Meena Manch. Develop 25 model child-friendly schools. In 3rd, 4th and 5th year, model child-friendly schools will be developed through program support. It will facilitate better service accessibility to children and protection of their rights. Then monitoring and evaluation of the project. Project director, project coordinator, assistant project coordinators, project assistant and Vardhan Kendra coordinators would be responsible for different level program activities, and their role, their participation should be encouraged with respective honorarium, monitoring, recognition, rewards, because their role is basic and crucial for monitoring and supportive supervision. There would be frequent visits and discussion with involved children, beneficiaries of events and stakeholders to review the intervention and its impact for betterment of the life of the children, and attainment of proposed objectives. Feedbacks would be given to the responsible member during review meetings to ensure and improve the quality of the project. Then the baseline survey. Baseline survey for existing situation at multi-stakeholder and proposed intervention area will be conducted. Existing knowledge, skills and practice of children and community level will be assessed. Village profile will also be developed. Reports of the same will be developed and shared through district level orientation meeting on project launching. Project assessment. At the end of the first year, a project assessment would be conducted to review the outputs or outcome or impact of the intervention in the village, and other level it will help to reschedule the activities of another year. Midterm evaluation. At the end of the 3rd year of the project, midterm evaluation would be conducted to review and analyze the project progress for exit strategy. Then inline assessment. In 5th year of the project, inline assessment would be conducted to review the achievements and plan sustainability or exit strategy from the intervention area. Then ongoing project evaluation. Project monitoring and evaluation will be conducted on frequent interval through project team to ensure supportive supervision and facilitation to the team members for quality process management. Then the IEC activities includes leaflet and calendars. Leaflets and calendars would be developed and placed at all Anganwadi centers and schools of the block. Wall writing activities in one intervention block of 3 districts. Quiz competition for children. Quiz competition for village school children will be organized on the occasion of Child Labor Day, Children's Day. Awareness rally will be organized with participation of school children and village children on a special intervention to aware community to work for protection of child rights. Signature camping. Children would organize signature camping to aware people about child rights. Then oath forms. Oath forms based on children charter will be developed in Hindi language. These forms would be filled by villagers through camping led with participation of children. This will include the ownership of the children of the village by their inhabiting fellow villagers. Then the expected results includes to raise awareness, to prevent trafficking and to protect trafficked children. Like if children are aware about their rights, they could be prevented from trafficking, and the trafficked children could be protected. To enhance the support of child-led initiatives towards the establishment of eco-friendly structures, to reduce exploitative child labor, to mainstream the inclusion of children with disabilities, to reduce marginalization and discrimination by ensuring political, social, and economic participation of Dalit and Adivasi children. And the expected outcomes of the project includes child parliament will be formed and strengthened in all schools. Village Child Welfare Committee will be formed and strengthened in all intervention village. All children of the intervention village aged 8 to 18 years would be fully aware of their rights and protecting their rights too. Vardhan Kendra of intervention village will be availing counseling services and facilitating villagers to access optimum benefits of government schemes. It will have multiple impact to improve socio-economic and political status of the intervention villages. Children, boys and girls of age group 14 to 18 years would be organized in child self-help groups, and they would be protecting their rights and supporting children in need for protection of their rights. Performance awards would appreciate boys and girls leaders and role models to inspire others to lead activities for protection of the right of the children. All people approx would be directly or indirectly benefited involved in the project. They would become aware of child rights issues through different events and media of mass awareness campaign through this project. The relevance of the project. This project aims to set a benchmark in the field of child welfare through active participation of the target children groups, community, associated stakeholders, and service providers. It will analyze and resolve the potential problems for protection of child rights and take corrective measures to resolve it at all stages. Developed documents would help district administration to analyze gaps and work on recommendation to improve efficient implementation of the program. Multiple level activities would give a clear picture of the existing context. It will help a lot to the associated stakeholders for decision making and taking corrective measures. Monitoring and evaluation system. This project aims to strengthen the existing service delivery mechanism as well as ensure its respectability through target groups and stakeholders. Child Parliament, Minamanj, Child Information Resource Center, Children Self-Help Groups, and Village Child Welfare Committee are conceptualized to work autonomously as a pressure group, and evaluation of the program will be done throughout the project period on quarterly basis. Qualitative assessment through participation of children and different stakeholders in focus group discussion would be an integral part of review meetings. Recommendations and way forwards would also be decided in the meetings. This would be coordinated through Vardhan Kendra, and the associated activities includes participation of the people for a participatory development that could understand and considers the need of the every inhabitants, every citizens. This will empower our villages. There are concepts envisioned by the pioneers of the Indian democracy. It needs to be respected. The sustainability of the project includes, like Vardhan Kendra is conceptualized to support villagers to get access of consultancy and support services to access benefits of the existing governmental schemes. A mechanism of donation would be developed on organizational receipt, and proper account of the same would be maintained at Vardhan Kendra level to meet its operational cost, including cost of the Vardhan Kendra coordination. At the end of the project, Vardhan Kendra coordinator would be replaced by adolescent group members in forthcoming project years. The Village Child Welfare Fund, it will be mandatory to the project staffs of the associated NGOs to donate 1% of their monthly honorarium to the Village Child Welfare Fund of their respective districts, block and village. Fundraising campaign would also be organized in village to gather funds to support needy children of the village. Fund would also be raised in block and district labor review meetings to ensure its availability in emergency to support labor department for transportation of the rescued children. The fund could also be utilized to support children with disability through the prior concerns of the Village Child Welfare Committee. This fund could also be utilized for other villages of the districts as and whatever is found suitable through Village Child Welfare Committee. The participatory approach for development includes and respect will and interest of every citizens, and it need to be implemented in synergy with the constitutional provisions of India. Jai Hind.